Now let's go back to the topic that Conor Tomlis and I were just discussing before the break. The tragic doesn't, that word doesn't even, it's doing too much heavy lifting, frankly. The atrocious assassination of Charlie Kirk. Let's speak to Erol Morkoc from Republicans Overseas in the UK, who's a friend of Charlie. Erol, I actually have run out of words to even ask questions now. I don't know how to ask you how you are feeling today in reaction to this utterly awful news.
Well, like you and like anybody, crestfallen I don't know how to describe it. I'm getting married in December to a woman I met because of Charlie Kirk because of Turning Point USA, because of the organization he built. Charlie was a kind person to me. He brought me with him to Mar-a-Lago. He treated me with respect and generosity like everybody who's going to come on shows across the country and across the world who's had a personal experience with Charlie. Now, people don't realize how young Charlie was. He was only 31 years old to have a wife and two kids now. When I worked with Charlie, we were just boys in comparison. And it's heartbreaking to see somebody who put themselves out there, who every time will go out in front of these people. And maybe he was thankless, and certainly, Charlie enjoyed it, but he was a peaceful warrior. He wasn't a bad man. He wasn't a politician. And he wasn't a soldier. And frankly, my friend and this person didn't deserve to die this way. And those two children are going to go up without a father because of that violent action. And at some point, you stop, wondering why, and you realize that there's no answer for it. Like, people can be so influential. Look how Charlie brought people from around the world. He took a movement that people thought they'd lost, which was the American Culture War. When I showed up on an American college campus, it was over. And Charlie Kirk was there, and he was fighting for what myself and other conservative students, mostly just kept their mouths shut about. And that courage, I mean, I was a little bit older than Charlie, so it's interesting to have somebody younger than you that you look up to in some ways, especially in political things of all arenas. So we had a very unique relationship because of that, and well, I don't pretend that he was, somebody who had texted every day. He's certainly somebody who was a kind friend, and somebody who was generous, and would give his shirt off the back to anybody. And I think it should be pointed out that Charlie lived his life knowing that his soul was saved by Jesus Christ, and it's something he was always wore on his sleeve and was very open about. And there's a lot of prayers in this country today.
That
I
it
know
gives me solace. It is, as a Christian, a great solace when you know that it's a Christian. We've talked a lot about the political angles of this. We've talked a lot about the provocation from the demonising rhetoric of the left wing. We've talked a lot about President Trump's reaction, about MSNBC. What I want to do now is take the opportunity to talk about Charlie, to talk about, for people who don't know him, listeners who may have heard the name but never watched his content, or people who have never heard of his name and are learning about him today. I think we deserve to tell the world about that man and how remarkable he was. So please, I'd like you to sort of lead that tribute, if you will.
Well, I know it's limited time, but if there's one thing I would tell your viewers or anybody listening to do is go back and listen to this man's words and listen to what he said about how important free speech and dialogue is, and how the absence of that is going to lead to violence, and how right he was, and how wise beyond his years he was, and how much grace he gave people who did not give him any grace, and how much he used his faith and kindness to try to understand people who had obviously cast great aspersions upon him. So the best thing I can say is that Charlie was a lion of free speech, a civil rights warrior, and somebody who stood up for the forgotten young men in this country, and young women, but also especially for forgotten young men. And above all, he was a Christian and a faithful man and a father to two beautiful children who will never, ever be able to have their father there, and his wonderful wife. And I think above all else today, we should just remember that he gave his life fighting for what he believed in, and he didn't do it for the money, and he didn't do it for your friendship or love. He did it because he believed in it. And all of us could take a lesson from that today, and make sure that we don't stop and let that torch burn out, because Charlie wouldn't have wanted that, especially today.
You are Republicans Overseas here in the United Kingdom, looking what has happened in America, but also seeing what's going on in the United Kingdom as well. What lessons do we need to learn over here?
Just to let the other side talk for once. I mean, I've gone in many public speaking engagements in the UK, and I know the audience has come there with preconceived notion that I'm a literal Nazi, that I'm espousing an ideology of hate. And that's not what the Republican Party, that's not what Charlie Kirk, that's not what our sort of conservative movement is. And when you show up and you think the other people are Hitler and actually all of these pejorative terms, and it's not just mockery, it's not just signs, it's not just, politicking, it's real, and you feel it, and you go in there and it weighs on you. Yeah, Donald Trump is made out of something different, and some people can do it, but it makes people feel bad when you hurt people's feelings long and long enough. You realize that you've hurt a lot of people's feelings, and now people don't want to talk with you. People don't want to come and communicate with you, and that's only going to make this worse. And look how it's going in the U.S. I pray that the UK finds a way to turn it around before it gets as bad as it's gotten in our country, because you guys have a wonderful, amazing Socratic debate system, and I'm so privileged to even be able to engage in it, because we don't have exactly what you have. Even the free speech you guys have in media, bringing in opposing voices. The U.S. is a very closed circuit. You have something very special. Charlie saw that. He cared about it. Please don't lose it. To whoever's listening, please don't lose it. You're the cornerstone of global free speech. This is the foundation of all of our ideology. Stand with us, please, like Charlie stood for you.
Erol, thank you so much for coming on the programme. Beautiful, beautiful words, so eloquently put.